Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel and welcome to this series where I'm building the Da Vinci Flyer by Cliff, which you can't see because the name is over here. So basically what I'm going to do now, I'm going to continue building the wings. I've got here the plan for the left wing. I've already prepared the spar. This is the main spar, which is a 1/4 of an inch, like 6 millimeters. And what I'm going to do now, I'm going to mock up, put all the pieces that I've got kind of here. I'm going to bring them over into the picture. Try to set it up individually, one by one, to make sure that everything fits, that nothing has to be filed down. They might need some adjustments. When I know that it all fits with this structure, then I'm going to glue it down. The next challenge here is going to be to do what I'm very afraid of. This is this top spar, which is bent, so I'm going to need to cut that one out, bend it over the kettle as Cliff says, and try to squeeze it in. And basically once that is in place, and just the braces and the wing should be pretty much done, at least the structure. Then I'll go on to the other wing, and then we probably need to do quite a lot of sanding and bringing things down into shape and things like that, so that's then going to be further on. But for this chapter at least, I hope that I can build the structure up and have it basically stand alone on itself and fit. Everything has to fit. That's the key challenge. So follow me along on this one. I try to be brief, and let's see how it turns out. So I've managed to kind of mock assemble everything, and things seems to fit. I have done some corrections to the slots on the top of the ribs for the upper spar, so that I do them now, which is easier. I might need to do some adjustments when it's built, but it can still be done with a file. And what I've also done, you can't see it, probably it's too small. I've put in a spacer here because that's where I'm going to then eventually push in put in the dihedral brace. So that's that. I'm just standing this up, and then I'll go slowly. I think I'm going to go from the inside of the wing slowly outside, building both the leading and trailing edge, and putting in the ribs, and slowly with the white glue pinning it down and gluing. It's going to take a little bit because I want to make sure that the glue is somehow set. There's also a lot of end grain. You remember on end grain we have to actually put glue, wait for it to sit a little bit, suck it in, and then use it in, right? So, and that takes a little bit of time. I don't always do it, but being the wing, being kind of a critical component, then I do want to do it, that I actually use that technique of putting the glue on first on the end grain. So I start already with that. I was thinking of recording it and then making a fast motion of this, but that's going to take probably 2 days, so I won't do it. But once I have the structure somehow glued, before I take it off the board, I'll come back to you. And now for a moment of truth. So what I've done, I've built all the structure. I've used a little piece of the 5mm spar, and I've made sure that it fits into all the ribs. And now I've taken this longer spar and I spent a minute or two over the kettle trying to steam it, and let's see if now it's going to be kind of bent enough to be able to hold here in place. I've also beveled the tip. I don't know if you can see it, but I've beveled it down so that it glues here a little bit better, and I might want to pin it down. Cliff says this is easy. For me it isn't, but let's see if it goes. So I've also glued in all the gaps in the ribs. That's kind of a very drastic bend, but seems to be taking it. This one somehow is coming out, and here another drastic bend. Also the gaps in the ribs, they have to be at an angle, and this is where it might crack. So I think I'm in, but it's kind of deforming a little bit here and there, so I'm going to see if I can make sure it holds down. Some weights now would be good. I don't have them, so hoping that this is going to stay. It's probably too much glue. One of you once said, like, if you think you have too much glue, you have too much glue. So this, I'm thinking I might actually pin it down. If I had a thin pin, that would be better. Like pin it into the wood to see if it actually will hold better. straight through. And then I have a little piece of balsa, scrap balsa, that I use sometimes to try to remove the excess glue, for aesthetic, for weight, for tidiness. And it seems to be in. I'm not sure if the bend is how it has to be, but I need to put something to hold this down. Here, Mr. Rubik maybe can help us. So I'm hoping that now it's going to hold. Then there'll be the sanding and things like that. So I think from the structure perspective we're kind of set. You can't see it because maybe it's far away, but I did actually, because it's the same dimensions as the spar, 3/16, so 5mm square. So I also put in these cross, I don't know what to call them, cross members like here to make a bit of more strength. And I've also put the upper spar in place. I still have the 1mm ply there keeping the space, so I hope that actually is not completely glued. It might be a little bit glued, but that I can pull it out. That's then for the dihedral brace. And with this actually, once this dries, which might take like a half an hour, 1 hour or something, then the wing structure is complete. And then the next step will be to take it off and see how to sand it down, the leading and the trailing edges. So actually, so far I'm quite satisfied. Maybe Cliff was right, as usual. It wasn't maybe as hard as I thought it was, and it seems to be holding. So let's see if I can do the same on the other wing. So let me do a bit more, wait for it to set, maybe take it off, and then show you what we have. But already the shape of the wing is very interesting. As you can see, it's a big characteristic of the model, right? So let's see how it goes. And here is the left wing. I've removed the space holder, the 1mm ply here, because then the dihedral brace will come. And the wing is actually very, very sturdy, I must say. Like really, I think very well designed. This is a little bit loose, of course, because it still is not glued together, but I think that it's overall looking very nice. I did manage to bend the wood and without breaking anything, no cracks. It's glued here. It still needs a lot of sanding then, of course. I think the sanding, I'll probably maybe start with the trailing edge, maybe carve slightly, and then start to sand kind of as a continuation of the ribs. And then for the leading edge, I think I'll just round. There's still some imperfections, very, very small kind of shifts, but I think it's going to be okay. Sand it down, kind of round it down, like keep the shape of the rib, and then kind of round it down so that it's a bit of a rounded leading edge, a little bit more aerodynamic. And maybe then a bit of the sanding here and there, just to being careful not to damage the ribs. But in overall, actually very satisfied, very nice looking thing. Quite big also for my size of things, but really very nice and sturdy. So the activity now is going to be to sand it. It's going to take me probably a couple of days, because the sanding is always a little bit of a long process. And then see what it looks like, and then continue to do then the other wing, which is here on the plan. You can't see it, but it's over here, and that also has the central section, so it's a little bit more complicated. That's why I started with this one, and let's see how that goes. So next step, sanded. Step after that, the other wing, and then finally bringing it all together. So let's see how it goes. And here we have the completed left wing. I've already done quite a lot of sanding. I've basically finished the sanding, I hope, taking a couple of days. What I've done, and I don't know if you can see it here in profile, so basically I've sanded. First I carved, so I spent quite a lot of time carving. I've got a lot of carvings left over. Like to get the trailing edge down to kind of the shape of the ribs. Maybe I could do a little bit more, but I think it's going to be okay. I then rounded it. I have to be careful also to keep these shapes, because that's actually what gives a lot of the characteristics, a lot of the why it's a Da Vinci flyer, right? It's not a modern day airplane design, let's say. And then for the leading edge, what I did, let's see if you can see it, I actually respected the rib shape and then sanded up from the bottom, basically to give it a bit of the rounded shape, so that when the tissue comes around, that it's somehow rounded. Again, I could maybe do a little bit more, but I think it's going to be okay like this. There are some gaps in places, but I think it's going to be okay. There's just one mistake that I have found when I was kind of putting up the dihedral brace. Like the dihedral brace has to fit in here, but if you see that brace that I put in there, that initially I wanted to put in at the end, I went ahead and put it in, but I did not leave the gap there for it. So I'm going to need to, probably with the needle nose file, just file it down, make a little gap there so that the brace actually fits in. But other than that, like, it seems to be quite a sturdy design. Really quite happy with how it came out. I have done also another change, which I'm not sure it's good, because on the plan Cliff just puts the second spar up to this rib, up to rib number 2. I've extended it to rib number 3 because, knowing myself, I'm not good at flying, so kind of as much strength as possible will be good. I just have to be careful that when I do the tissue covering, I do not glue this part, that it somehow, that it just glued into here, that it doesn't create a dent in the wing, which might not look very good, or it might actually. So just have to be careful of that, mindful of that. And now with this wing done, I'm going to put it aside, and I'm going to start with the other wing. I won't show you so much progress because it's pretty much the same, except for the central section. It's pretty much the same, and then hopefully then the next update is bringing the wings together. And finally, some progress, because I have been up to things. Also some side projects, of course, because that's what we do. So here is the right wing. I think I showed this one already. And no, this one was actually, this is the right wing. I haven't shown this one. This is the left wing, the first one I did. And it's good to have one of each, right? Sometimes we do make that mistake and have two that are the same, and it's so big that it doesn't fit in the frame. So I think the sanding is pretty much done. There's still kind of the connecting parts that have to be also put in place. But let's see if you can actually see what I'm going to try to do now, which is basically a mock-up. I'm taking the dihedral brace, and what I'm going to do is, with kind of pegs, these kind of pegs that we use, if I can hold them, I'm going to try to hold the brace in place and make sure that it's somehow as close as it would be once it's glued in. I'm not gluing anything in yet because I still have to think of the steps. So that's one in there, and then the other one would come in here. Oops, but to make sure that it goes up to the rib. Maybe I need to sand something down still. And then this would be then the other one, only that once it's glued, I'll probably glue one first and then the other one. Once it's glued, again, I don't know if you can see this, let me tilt you up. Can I tilt you up? No. Let's see, I tilt you up a little bit and put it at a distance. Can you see this? It's so big it doesn't fit, right? So maybe lengthwise. So this should actually have a little bit of its dihedral. It has to be in place, and then in between come all these other components that have to be, basically they glue here at the leading edge, also the trailing edge. There's another piece, and also another piece of ply that has to be put in there. So also the wings have to be somehow sanded down to shape. So this is it's a huge wingspan. I think it's the biggest thing I've ever had, like in terms of these aeroplanes. So I'm hoping it's also stable. Looks nice, the design is actually quite nice. And now for me the question is going to be, should I glue this in place already, or should I do actually the tissue covering first? And what I'm thinking is that I might do tissue covering, because I think the tissue covering with both wings separate is going to be quite challenging. So I'm thinking of making tissue covering up to maybe this point, then leave this gap here that I can then actually glue and put in the other pieces and somehow clamp it down, and then, so basically once it's tissued, to do the final assembly. That would be one way. Another way would be to do the full assembly and then tissue, which I'm not sure, but in any case I have to think about that one. And what I have to do is I have to look for tissue, because I think I'm running out of the tissue that comes with the kits. I think I've used it up. I have other tissue, but it's mostly colored, so I'm not sure if I want to go and get more tissue or not. I have to think about it. And there are also other things to be done, like the wings are not everything, because I still need to do the push rods on the fuselage. They're not really good, and maybe even the undercarriage I might need to redo. So there's still a bit of work to do, but with this I'm getting very close to be able to have, let me put you down a little, like there, like take you down, very close to having kind of the whole model complete, which is impressive. But the tissue work is still going to be very demanding, and painting a little bit. So demanding or fun, let's call it fun. So I'm going to leave it here for the moment. So that's the end of this chapter, and as I say, I'll continue with the wings and with the rest of the things that have to be fixed. But as there aren't any ailerons here or anything, it should be relatively straightforward, and maybe in a couple of chapters, maybe 2, I'm thinking, we might have a finished model, and then I just need to find the courage to fly it, right? But that's another story. In any case, thank you everybody very much for following along and for being there, all your comments, tips and tricks. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.